2025 has been a hell of a year, hasn't it? The year of the snake. In numerology, it is a 9. When you add up the 2025, it equals a 9, which is the number of cycles ending. It is a number of shedding, of transformation, of releasing, of allowing karmic cycles to end because it's time. And I'm just sitting here reflecting on how 2025 has been for me personally, to help us all make sense of this crazy, insane, transitional year and what it was for, what the shedding has been for, what the shedding has been revealing to me, and hopefully to many of you who are watching and resonating with my frequency right now. For me personally, over the last year and a half, I would say late summer, it was August, September 2024. Let's set the scene. August, September 2024. I had worked so hard to bring this dream to life, to bring this vision to life that I had back in 2024, to somehow return to Spain. I have been living in Spain on and off for about 5 years, but they were never years. Oh my God, I almost spoke in Spanish. They were never years like back to back. You know, I would do 9 months to teach English. That was probably the easiest way that I could find to get a visa to come over to Spain as an American. Many Americans I've met, come to Spain in this way. So I was so determined in 2024 to get back to Spain, because the last time I was living in this country was actually right before COVID, right before the pandemic hit. I left Barcelona. I was living there for a year. I left in March of 2020, right before airports were shutting down, and we all know what happened that year. So for me, I had this feeling of unfinished business with Spain. I had this feeling that my dream, my vision to live in Spain, to build a life here, was cut short by circumstances completely out of my control. Nobody could have predicted. Well, maybe someone did. I don't know. But I don't think the majority of humanity could have ever predicted what was going to unfold in 2020 on such a global scale. A lot of us had never seen something like this before on such a massive scale. And so, yeah, I literally had to make the decision whether to stay or leave that country overnight. I made such a fast decision to pack up everything, cut the cord, cut and run. That's what I did. I cut and run. I left Barcelona in such a rush, in so much fear, in so much uncertainty, as I think many of us felt, especially that year. And I moved back to the U.S. and I lived with my mom for a few months until I could find my own place and kind of get back on my feet and restart. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. It was really chaotic, actually. It was traumatic to uproot myself so quickly, even though I've lived a very nomadic life, even though that's my posture. I just gotta wiggle a bit. I've lived a very nomadic life. I have lived in a few different countries. I've traveled over 30 countries, but this time was different because this exit was so rushed and so fast that it left me with such a feeling of, I think, bitterness, left me with this feeling of bitterness. It left me with this longing And it also put me in this state of mind. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, actually. I lived there for about 4 years, up until 2024. And those entire 4 years, I could never 100% relax into that environment, into that timeline, into that chapter of my life. Because in the back of my mind, there was always this tiny voice nagging at me, and it was saying, don't get too comfortable here. Don't enjoy it too much, don't get too attached, because your dream of living in Spain and making a life there got cut short by the global circumstances, and you're gonna get back there. You're gonna get back there sooner or later. So just try not to get too comfortable here. Do your best, but basically don't lean in to the present moment. Don't lean in. Don't let yourself actually enjoy this. Don't let yourself actually really connect with people, because if you get too attached, if you invest too much into this experience, into this chapter, into this place, you could get stuck here, get stuck here. I say that in quotes because it's so subjective, isn't it? This idea of feeling stuck or getting yourself stuck. It's so subjective. And, I'm just reflecting on those 4 years. I'm reflecting on these 4 years where I was so attached to a potential future. I was so attached both to the past I had left behind and the future that I was hoping to return to. Such a weird concept. But my mind, my body, my soul, my heart was never fully present those 4 years in Phoenix, because, like I said, I kept telling myself, well, this isn't really real. This is all temporary. Don't enjoy it too much. It's just, just a transient little chapter. You're probably just going to be here a few months and then you'll be back in Spain, Well, I mean, girl, a few months turned into a few years, more than a few. A few months in my mind actually turned into about 4 years. And I was so determined to get back to Spain that I did. I did it. I got back here, late 2024. I spent 5 months that year preparing. I spent so much money, invested so much money in the logistics of it all the paperwork and all the fees and the visa and all the arrangements and the stress. And, once I actually moved back here, it's been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been nothing like what I was hoping for. It's actually been a really disappointing, really disheartening experience being back in Spain, because what I was doing those 4 years in Phoenix was actually a huge part of my spiritual awakening journey. That had started a while ago, but I would say the 4 years in Phoenix were really like a big, long hermit phase. And I've had many of them, but this was the longest one, because in this hermit phase, I was forced to enter the void. And if you haven't heard of the void, definitely check out my other video. Check out my other video right here on the screen, all about navigating the uncertainty and the darkness and the long dark tunnel of being in a spiritual void, where you are essentially stripped away of everything that you thought you knew, everything you thought you liked, everything you thought you were in your identity. You are stripped away from it all in order to shed all the layers of who you think you should be, to eventually reveal to yourself who you actually are born to be. And so that was a big part of my experience those 4 years in Phoenix, Arizona, which was powerful. Was it enjoyable? No, absolutely not. God, It was a very isolating, solitary time. It was a period where I struggled so much to have connections, like form deep connections with people, because what I realized was that on a deeper emotional level, what fills my cup in connections is emotional depth. It is finding people who I can share my interests with, especially spiritual interests, artistic interests, like the things I love the most, music, singing, art, dance, language, travel, and all things spirituality, astrology, human design, shamanic journeying, whatever, whatever floats your boat, whatever you're drawn to. These are the things I'm drawn to, like metaphysical things, and to be able to meet people who can meet me at that level of depth, at that level of passion, at that level of curiosity. And not just curiosity, I mean people who are interested in it too, people who can share these experiences, have these conversations with me. I realized that a lot of the connections I had been allowing to linger in my life didn't check any of those boxes. Did not check any of those boxes, honey. Did not. And not to say that they were bad people, not to say that I was above them, they were below me, not to say any of that. It was simply a matter of understanding why I started feeling emotional distance with many people in my life during this hermit phase, this void period. And also recognizing that a lot of that friction, a lot of that emotional distancing comes from this incredible inner growth, incredible emotional and spiritual maturity that has been happening inside of me for many, many years, invisibly for a long time. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that I've come to learn about spiritual awakening and maturing as a human being. It's allowing yourself to sit in that discomfort when nothing feels right anymore. It's allowing yourself to find this incredible strength in your own solitude. Society really teaches us that it's not okay to be alone. We get so many conditioned messages from society our whole lives that it's not okay to be alone. You have to always find community. You got to find your partner. You got to be with your family. You got to surround yourself with friends. You got to always be talking to people. You got to always be out and about. Like if you're alone, like what are you doing? That's not okay. There must be something wrong with you if you're alone. But let me tell you guys, that's absolute bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. It is. It's complete bullshit, because in my solitude is really when I have found my strength. It is truly when I have found my strength. What solitude has allowed me to do is strip away all the bullshit from other people that does not belong to me. All the perspectives, all the viewpoints, all the beliefs about the world and how hard it is and how stressful it is and how, life is hard and it's all suffering, but you just got to keep going. You just got to hustle. Everything kind of sucks, but that's just planet Earth and we just got to deal with it. And I can't let myself rest, because if I let myself rest, and I'm not going to make any money, so I got to always be working and I got to ride this hamster wheel and I got to always be doing something. No, you don't. In my solitude is where I discovered the lies of society that my psyche has absorbed all my life, that my psyche has absorbed like a sponge and tricked me into believing that these are my beliefs. No, they're not. I actually don't believe any of the stuff I just said. These are simply things I've heard other people saying out loud and acting on those beliefs in fear. And so when I got back to Spain, late 2024, I was coming off the heels of this 4-year cocoon hermit void phase in Phoenix, which, yeah, it was really hard. It was really confusing. It was very isolating, but that also brought me some real, true soul friends who I've kept in touch with, the whole time that I've been living in Spain, ever since I left Phoenix. It stripped away all the connections that were keeping me small, that were breadcrumbing me, that actually didn't really share any of my interests, that could not meet me at this level of emotional depth that I carry, that actually didn't bring me reciprocity. They were connections that benefited much more from my presence than I did theirs, because of how much I give, how nurturing I am, how much strength I carry, how much I naturally inspire hope in other people. But I wasn't getting the same in return from a lot of those connections, and eventually the universe stripped them away. And so coming back to Spain off the heels of that whole experience, I found myself kind of treading two worlds, where in my mind, I still had this vision, I still had this fantasy of all the other versions of me who had lived in Spain in the past. There was 20-year-old Daniela who first came to Spain to study abroad, 20 years old, and it was nonstop partying and meeting so many people, and I had no idea who I was at 20 years old, and my life was filled with constant distractions. Constant. So many people, so many parties, just keeping myself busy every single second that I could get. And that's okay. That's completely normal. I mean, that's completely normal. It's what we're taught. That's what we're taught we should be doing with our time as adults, filling it with every possible distraction we can. There was 20-year-old version Daniela, and then I came back, the next few years on and off to be a English teacher, 3 more years after that. There was the 2019-2020 version of Daniela who came back with a remote job in tech and was making good money and was in a serious relationship at the time, living with her partner. But that version of me was so addicted to work by that point. That version of me was deriving so much of my value from how productive I was being, that I didn't know how to get off that hamster wheel and actually be present in my physical environment, like to actually enjoy the dream of living in Barcelona that I had manifested. I had no idea how to actually let myself enjoy that dream life that I did manifest, because I was such a workaholic in that version of me. And because I didn't really enjoy any of these experiences in Spain nearly as much as I was telling myself, I kept coming back and telling myself, look, just give it more time. You got to try it again. Maybe that was just a fluke. Maybe you just weren't in the right city. Maybe if you tweak this, if you change that, if you do this different, maybe you'll enjoy Spain so much more. You just keep going back and keep trying. You can't let it go. You can't give up. It's got to get better. There's got to be another way. I've realized this was my inner voice. This is the connection that I've had to Spain, to this country, to this fantasy. Let's be real. This is the connection I have had to this fantasy for the last at least 15 years. I've been in this 15-year relationship with Spain, maybe 17 years. I guess I'm giving away my age. That's whatever, who cares? I've been in like a 17-year, let's call it what it is, let's call a spade, a 17-year toxic relationship with Spain, with the fantasy of what this experience could be bringing me. I have been in a toxic relationship with potential, the potential of what an environment could bring me, the potential of the kind of fantasy I kept living in, and refusing to acknowledge that every single time I've come back to this environment to try it again, the outcome has been exactly the same. The outcome has been exactly the same. And it reminds me of this concept I mentioned in another video of mine. I'll link it above. It reminds me of this concept of a karmic carousel. A karmic carousel. Because when you find yourself coming back to the same loops, just the spiral, learning the same lessons, banging your head against the wall over and over again in different environments and different connections and different roles, but it's the same pattern. It's the same lesson over and over. That's what I call riding the karmic carousel. Because in this life, we all incarnate with karmic lessons, soul lessons that we are meant to see from a different perspective, to understand how to liberate ourselves from them. That's why it's a carousel, because until you can zoom out from the ride itself and look at it above, look down on it from a higher perspective, from a mountain view, only when you are able to do that is when you can understand what you were meant to learn from riding that carousel all this time. I am now recognizing that no matter how many times, no matter how many times I've come back to this environment, no matter where I've literally lived in almost every single region of this country. At least half, okay, fine, that was an exaggeration. At least half of the regions of this country I have lived in, and I have visited almost all of the regions of this country, the autonomous communities of this country. I have been coming across the same patterns the entire 17-year relationship I've had with this place. And I'm not just, this is not to shit on Spain. Let me tell you, there are so many things that I love about this country and this culture. Let me preface with that. There's so many things that I do love about this culture. But on a soul level, in the ways that my soul is being called to evolve, to step onto bigger platforms, to lean into the ambitions I've had my entire life, to be honest, to expand my voice, to actually lean into my dreams. I now understand that the dreams I carry in my heart, the ambitions I've always had, are meant to expand beyond the limitations of one country. And in many environments that I have found, not just here, in different parts of the world where I've been, I do find myself, I can just see now how much I have shrunk myself, shrunk my voice, shrunk my vision, this grand vision I have for my life, for my success, for my career, what I know in my soul and my bones that I'm actually capable of, what I feel now. I've hid that, I've shrunken it, I've silenced it, and I've surrounded myself with environments and people who do not dream bigger. They don't allow themselves to dream bigger. They conform to whatever's around them. They shrink into complacency. They silence themselves in stagnancy. They burn themselves out in hyperproductivity and just call it planet Earth and just accept it as the normal. But I am someone who will never accept that as a normal. I'm someone who will never accept living a lifestyle in that way. I've lived it. I've lived that lifestyle for years. Did not work for me. I had several nervous breakdowns living in that lifestyle. No, it doesn't work for me. And I refuse to accept that it ever will. I refuse to accept that it ever will. And recognizing these patterns in my life, it helps me zoom out and reach a higher perspective and realize, like, girl, no matter how you try to shape and twist and squeeze out every ounce of juice that you can from an experience, if you keep hitting the same walls over and over and over on these labyrinth loops, if you keep finding yourself dimming yourself and shrinking yourself and surrounding yourself with the same characters, then you're still living through the exact same play. You're still living through the exact same play that you didn't even know you were a part of. And do you still want to be a part of this play? Or has it run its course because you've watched the same play like 30 times by now? Like, aren't you getting a little bored with the same stories playing out? Aren't you getting a little jaded? Like, don't you wonder if there's other plays you could be watching? Like, aren't you curious if there are any other stories that you could get involved in? Are there other plays that you want to be acting in at this point? Because you don't have to keep watching the same play on repeat, my love. You don't have to keep watching the same show on repeat. Aren't you tired of the reruns? Don't you want something more for yourself? Aren't you ready to spread your wings and see what else the world has to offer you? Why do you keep going back to the same familiar environments over and over and over, telling yourself that it's going to be better this time, that you're going to enjoy it more this time? I have squeezed the juice. I have squeezed all the juice out of this environment, out of this experience, I've completed it. That's how it feels. I have completed my chapter in Spain. This is what it feels like to finally get off the karmic carousel. It's reaching this moment of completion. It's reaching this realization that no matter what angle you approach it from, how many times you cycle through this ride, like, it was fun for a little while, but now I'm just nauseous. Like, now I'm just dizzy. I'm nauseous. I can't get off this thing. The carousel is like, it's blocking me. It's blocking me from any forward movement. You know, it's just round and round. Like, I'm dizzy. I can't see anything straight. That's what the karmic carousel does. It doesn't allow you to have any stillness. It doesn't allow you to have sacred solitude, to go within, to cut through the noise, to clear the chaos, to finally ask yourself and get radically honest, like, hey, am I actually enjoying this ride? Really? Well, really though. Are you actually enjoying this ride? Or is there a part of you that's actually getting sick from this? Is there a part of you that's feeling very uncomfortable on this ride? You don't need to trick yourself anymore. You don't need to tell yourself that you're having fun and that you're happy and you're enjoying this when you're actually sick inside, when you're actually dizzy inside. You don't have to lie to yourself anymore. You can just let it go. You can just get off the carousel. Even as I say that, I feel so relieved. Oh my God, you know what this feeling is? Yeah, this is freedom. That's what this feeling is. This is relief. This is freedom. This is self-responsibility. This is recognizing that I have always had the freedom to choose whether to stay on this ride or get off. And I'm done. The ride's over. And I'm ready to try a new one. I'm ready to try a much bigger, bolder, way more exciting ride than the carousel. Are you? Yeah, that was the message today, guys. That was the message. So, yeah, powerful. Man, I had no idea what I was going to say. I never know what I'm going to say before filming. That was a powerful one. So, if you enjoyed this message, I would be so grateful if you could support the channel. Subscribe if you're new here to follow along on the journey. If you would like to receive more truth transmissions like this, yeah, like, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment if this resonated with you in any way. I'd really love to hear what's going on in your life. What kind of karmic carousels do you feel you've been riding? You know, what's the story? I'd really love to hear your stories, and I would love to encourage you to encourage others. Let's support each other on this beautiful online community, you know? Let's help each other grow. By sharing our stories, by being vulnerable, this is really a safe space for all of us to be radically honest, you know, because sooner or later, it's inevitable. Sooner or later, the truth is inevitable. So why not share it here, you know? And let's really support each other on this wild human evolution. Wild human journey. Also, you can hop on my newsletter with the links below. I forgot how to say that in English. You can hop on my newsletter. Links are below. All my services are below. All my goodies. I got tons of links. Good things to get into in the links below. My God, my English is failing me right now. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye. But sending you so much love and hope to see you in the next video. And goodbye.